Meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Chair, I'll call to order the meeting of the directors of the Erie County Stadium Corporation for Monday, September 8th, 2025. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. We welcome public comment on today's agenda items. I will note for the record that the public was given the opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting written comments by 9 a.m. today. I'd like to state for the record that no comments were received from the public concerning today's agenda items. I'll also note that we do not have any members of the public attending today. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I would like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of the agenda items today. So I'd like to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. With that, be sure that you may recuse yourselves from any discussion or vote regarding such items. We're done. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes of the directors' meeting of March 10th, 2025. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I think that motion carried. I'll now ask Steve Rinaldi, the corporation's president, to present our next agenda item, request for the corporation to adopt property disposition guidelines. Steve?
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, everybody, for getting in on very little sleep last night. Sounds like the county's current stadium still has a few more stories to tell before the season is out. The first item here today is the Public Authorities Accountability Act requires the annual adoption of guidelines with respect to property disposition. On March 27th of this year, the Empire State Development Directors adopted the 2025 guidelines regarding disposition of property. Today, the directors are being requested to adopt these guidelines on behalf of the Erie County Stadium Corporation. The guidelines regarding property generally provide for appointing a contracting officer, disseminating and posting the guidelines, annual inventory and reporting on the status of the corporation's property, and then any obligations that we may have with respect to pricing and methods of actual disposition itself. We are recommending that the board appoint the Empire State Development Executive Vice President of Real Estate Development as our contracting officer. It's typical of the subsidiaries. ESD staff has determined that the requested approval for property disposition guidelines and the appointment of this officer constitutes a type 2 action. There's no environmental actions required with this approval. So basically, we're just asking that we adopt the attached guidelines, appoint the executive vice president for real estate development as the contracting office for purposes of the guidelines, and to authorize the taking of all these related actions. So based on the foregoing, I recommend approval of the requested actions.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions or comments from the directors? As noted earlier, we do not have any comments from the public with regards to this item, so I'll now entertain a motion for approval. Motion. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. See, next, your the corporation to adopt the 2025 permit guidelines.
So more guidelines today. Basically, we're asking the director to adopt the updated and revised guidelines for the use, award, monitoring, and reporting procurement contracts as mandated again by the Public Authorities Law. At that same earlier meeting in March of this year, the parent corporation, Empire State Development, adopted the guidelines, which are referred to as 2025 guidelines throughout the board meeting for the materials. And these are designed to govern procurements by Empire State Development and its subsidiaries, including the Erie County Stadium Corporation. The proposed guidelines attached to this memo will set forth policies and procedures to be followed by the corporation and its subsidiaries when seeking to contract for goods or services. Proposed guidelines comply with the applicable provisions of the Public Authorities Law, State Finance Law, and State Tax Law, and they are consistent with the State Procurement Council's guidelines and with the governor's directive that all state agencies and public authorities make responsible spending decisions and that they are accountable for sufficient monitoring of their spending to ensure the highest level of fairness, non-discrimination, openness, and transparency. ESD staff has determined the approval of these guidelines are type 2 action and there's no further environmental review required. So the directors are requested to adopt the 2025 guidelines for the use, awarding, monitoring, and reporting of procurement contracts effective as of April 1st for this year. Based on that, I recommend approval of this requested action.
Thanks. Any questions or comments from the directors? I mentioned earlier, no comments from the public were received on this, so I'll entertain a motion of approval. Any motion? Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Thanks, Steve. Next, on final agenda item today is a request to enter into a contract for consultant services related to code compliance and enforcement services.
We'll give the director McDuffie consent.
Sorry, I apologize.
No,
Sorry.
you're fine. You're fine. No. I hate to say it out loud, but it's the slowest elevator in the city. The last tab for you there. Well, again, I appreciate the last item of approval because we use those procurement method guidelines to deal with this procurement we're going to talk about here today. And again, just to clarify this action, the current stadium property is still owned by Erie County. It will be until the land is transferred. And the county is committed to all of the code compliance and enforcement services for the existing stadium, including the demolition of that stadium, as well as the building of the new stadium. And again, I want to thank Bill Erie and his team, Chris Strauss and Sean Griffin in particular, and their consultants for the work they're doing out there every day to get us over the hump. So thanks, Bill. We do expect, though, that by mid-2026, the new stadium, the existing facilities and surrounding property will be owned by the Erie County Stadium Corporation and leased to the Bills. And with the new stadium complex not then being state-owned, we want to ensure that the essential government functions we're doing expand, and we will be responsible then for all the permitting and code compliance moving forward. So we are looking to bring on a consultant firm to help us. Basically, the scope of work is twofold here. We want to have them come out and help us assess all of the requirements that are necessary for the state, and certainly we'll be meeting with the county and the Bills to go over what's been done for the last few decades out there. And part two of that is then for them to help us develop a program that we can basically have everything in place for the state to follow moving forward. So in April of this year, we solicited bids for a code compliance and enforcement services project. We did that through the contract reporter. We received 4 proposals. We narrowed that down and interviewed 2 consultant teams. And as a result, the selection team determined that Azar Design Company met all the requirements of the RFP and provided the best value for the proposed scope of work. The contract shall run from September of this year through December of 2026 at a cost not to exceed $250,000. Azar Design is a full-service, multidisciplinary architectural and engineering firm with over 160 professionals, and the project will be led from their Buffalo office. They have successfully completed numerous code compliance projects across the state, including doing work for the Office of General Services, New York State Education Department, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Again, as I mentioned, the contract will cover all fees and expenses not to exceed $250,000, and that does include a small contingency. And again, this is just for parts 1 and 2 that are delineated in the scope. If we need them further for any implementation, which would amount to actually come on board as inspectors, right, to help us complete the work, we would look to negotiate an addenda and we would bring that back to the board before we move forward with that. Funding for this project is available from a New York State budget appropriation. The project shall be required to use good faith efforts to achieve an overall MWD participation goal of 30% and an SDVOB participation goal of 6%. And just so folks know, AZAR is a New York State certified minority business enterprise. Staff has determined that this authorization constitutes a type 2 action. No further environmental review is required in connection with this. So the directors are requested to make a determination of responsibility with respect to the proposed consultant, authorize the corporation to enter in a consultant contract with AZAR for an amount not to exceed $250,000, and to authorize the corporation to take all related actions. Based on the information, I recommend approval of the requested action.
Thanks, Steve. Any questions or comments?
Steve, can you explain just the timeline in terms of the county's ownership, the county's transfer to the state?
Sure.
What AZAR will be doing specifically?
Right. So with the upcoming lease, like again, mid next year, we expect that the lease will kick in. The county would remain on board to complete all the permitting and code compliance for the new stadium right through final completion, which will likely occur later in 2026. And then also be on board for the demolition of the existing stadium into 27. So there's a little overlap in services there. But once the lease kicks in and the state takes over the property, there's still parking lots, the field house, the several other buildings that are called out in the materials here that the state will take ownership of. And if there are any projects related to that require code compliance, permitting, or otherwise, the state would be providing those services at that time. Then once the county's done on the new stadium and the demolition's done, any future work on those facilities would also fall under the state's ownership and therefore the code compliance and permitting.
Will the county then, in the time that we're still the permitting authority, will Bill be interacting then with AZAR? Will his team be? Will our code compliance consulting team and Bill?
For the most part, your staff and consultants will be inside, right, the new facility, or demoing the other one. Our team, in essence, will be sort of butted up against you, looking at everything else until you guys are done on the site. But Bill's involved with everything, so yeah, we'll call Bill. We'll still be calling Bill.
Other questions? Again, no comments from the public on this issue, so I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion. Second? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Now being there's no further business, I ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Second? All in favor? Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Yeah, all set. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Part of this.